A few months ago, we did compare the Zenfone Max Pro and Redmi Note 5 Pro cameras against each other. Fast forward to today and Asus brought out a newer and better variant which brings in 6 gigs of RAM and more importantly, better cameras. But would the newer camera setup be able to win over the Note 5 Pro, which beat it fair and square last time? This is Sandeep from RevAtlas, let's find out. Both the phones sport dual cameras at the back. They also have similar 5MP depth sensors for portrait and bokeh effects. However, the primary sensor is a 12MP f2.2 unit on the Redmi Note 5 Pro, while the Zenfone Max Pro gets a 16MP f2 unit. The colors on the Zenfone Max Pro tend to be cooler, while the Note 5 Pro has warmer colors. The Max Pro also has better detailing and sharpness, however the dynamic range is better by default on the Note 5 Pro, possibly because of a larger sensor. I couldn't find details on the exact sensor that the Max Pro is using on the 6GB model. But if you use the HDR mode, the dynamic range becomes better on the Max Pro due to the more aggressive processing. Although the cost of this is a flatter looking photo with less contrast than the Note 5 Pro captures. This means that while the Max Pro retains more details from the highlights and increases the shadows as well, the image looks a bit faded. Coming to the low light performance, the Zenfone Max Pro manages to produce brighter and more well exposed images compared to the Note 5 Pro. The noise levels are also lower, but in order to truly get the best possible images, you need to use the HDR mode here too, and in many cases, unless you're extremely still, you can capture motion blur. So while the Max Pro can produce better images, to do so requires a steady set of hands or a stable surface or an apparatus of some kind. Without HDR, the shots that you get on the Max Pro aren't as good and sometimes are even worse than the Note 5 Pro. In terms of portrait mode, the Note 5 Pro is better in terms of detail and sharpness preserved on the subject in focus, as well as better in terms of the blurring algorithm and edge detection. The Max Pro has slightly better dynamic range in portrait mode, but only marginally better. One advantage is that you can tweak the blur levels on the Max Pro, which can give better results in certain scenarios such as this. The Note 5 Pro has a 20MP f2.2 camera, while the 6GB Zenfone Max Pro has an upgraded 16MP f2 camera. Despite the lower resolution, the images from the front camera on the Max Pro carry higher levels of detail and are larger in size. There is an ever so slight over-sharpening happening too, but is not too bad under good light. Under low light, both phones are pretty high in terms of noise and shakes are quite apparent, especially if you use HDR mode on the Max Pro. The Note 5 Pro does slightly better in these conditions, but again nothing great. Coming to the portrait mode on the front camera, the blurring algorithm is better on the Zenfone Max Pro and has better sharpness as well as well-defined edges on the area in focus. The Note 5 Pro also produces great images, but the Max Pro has an ever so slight advantage. In terms of videos, the Note 5 Pro is a really great choice due to 1080p 30fps videos with EIS. The detailing is a bit on the lower side, but at least the footage looks great. The Max Pro can do 1080p 30fps as well as 4K 30fps, but neither supports EIS, and that's a shame since the Asus videos are better in terms of bitrate and detailing, and EIS would have given a refined stable look. Asus can also do either 4K UHD at 30fps or 4K DCI at 24fps. Audio quality is better on the Asus as well since the background noise is suppressed and your audio is clear. Videos with the front-facing camera look better on the Note 5 Pro, but the difference isn't as big. The Zenfone wins here again in terms of audio. The front-facing camera on the Zenfone Max Pro 6GB variant, capturing 1080p video. Let me know what you guys think about the overall sharpness, the dynamic range, the video quality itself, the stabilization, and also how well it's picking up my voice in this particular environment. Whether it's noisy, whether it's handled well, all those sort of things. This is the front-facing camera on the Redmi Note 5 Pro capturing 1080p video without EIS. Let me know what you guys think about the overall image quality, the sharpness, the dynamic range, and most importantly, how good is the audio quality, how well it's actually picking up my voice in this scenario. The regular Zenfone Max Pro was a decent camera phone, but the 6GB variant with the updated setup is surely a fighter. The front-facing camera I think personally outdoes the Note 5 Pro. The superior HDR mode, detailing, and various different resolutions for videos definitely impresses you. However, the main issue I found with it is the lack of EIS, which would have otherwise put the phone slightly above the Note 5 Pro for me. Considering that it does have the required hardware, it's still possible to do so if Asus wants with a firmware update. Thanks for watching this video, see you again in the next one.